Welcome to Sounds of Resistance channel. The 7-month war in Ukraine added many new concepts to the world literature. It has been shown to everyone how strong armies can be destroyed with an organized defense. Strategic mistakes in ground operations and many issues to be considered in a war have been experienced in a way that military experts will discuss for many years. The critical importance of the use of coastal defense systems and unmanned aerial vehicles in naval warfare has emerged. In fact, for the first time in the history of the World War, we witnessed that unmanned armed aerial vehicles such as Bayraktar TB2 could sink warships or blind the radars of warships' defense systems. We have witnessed the importance of guerrilla and partisan operations and how modern commercial vehicles can be transformed into a military-grade killing machine. However, the developments in the Ukrainian war continue to surprise us and all military researchers. The will and determination of the Ukrainians for freedom is unlimited. Ukrainian heroes devise such incredible strategies with limited resources that the Russians are trembling with fear and lurking around like dazed rabbits by the power of the Ukrainians' inventive military inventions. One of these legendary inventions developed by the Ukrainian army with the citizens is the tractor brigade. They are the sacred heroes of the Ukrainian army. All of them are brave, fearless civilian farmers. Ukrainian farmers who emerged in the siege of Kiev and later called the tractor brigade are again on active duty in the region. Throughout the war in Ukraine, and especially in the early days, video footage of Ukrainian farmers shooting Russian tanks and guns went viral. The clips gave a glimpse into the fighting spirit throughout Ukraine and showed how farmers were able to help Ukrainian soldiers claim Russian tanks and reuse them for their own use. They are the most important support brigades of the Ukrainian Army of Ukraine. As the conflicts intensified, the videos appeared less and less. Millions of Ukrainians have fled their country as Russian troops increasingly target civilian infrastructure. But since Ukraine's successful counteroffensive, the tractor brigade and its legendary frontline operations have returned. The main reason for this is very clear. As the Russian army fled critical areas in Kharkiv and Donbas, they left behind Russian tanks and armored vehicles, and the tractor brigade is back in action to recruit them into the Ukrainian ranks. A shared video showed the tractor brigade returning to the battlefield and taking away more tanks. The video shows a Russian T-72B3 being pulled by a Ukrainian tractor on a rural road. The clip shows Ukrainian soldiers standing on the side of the road, filming their tractor pulling the tank and pushing it down the road. Soldiers pull their military vehicles to the side of the road to facilitate the passage of the tractor. It is known that the Ukrainian civilians made a great contribution to the outstanding resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces in the first 4 months of the war. Many civilians carried out guerrilla attacks against and slowed down the Russian army in cities besieged and tried to occupy by the Russians. We have also heard stories of a Ukrainian farmer lurking in the path of the Russian army and a Ukrainian civilian intercepting Russian tanks with a Molotov. Also that old Ukrainian grandfathers shot down a Russian fighter jet with a rifle or single-handedly destroyed a Russian tank platoon with grenades. There are also legends that the 19-year-old Ukrainian paratrooper shot down more than 9 Russian aircraft with his NLAW rocket launcher. These were great heroic stories, and we seem to be hearing many more of these stories in the coming days. When the Russian army goes on a negative attack, the biggest harvest begins for our tractors units, said a Twitter post from the Ukrainian Armed Forces for the Tractor Brigade. They did not forget to mock the Russians, saying that sometimes undisciplined tractor units accidentally devoured the crew with the trophy. Another video recorded by Ukrainian soldiers driving in the highway shows a Russian tank being pulled by 2 Ukrainian tractors along the same road. An interview with one of the men behind the operation, broadcast by Eastern European news outlet, revealed what happened after the farmers towed the tanks. The farmer told the news network that he initially planned to take the tank home for himself, but was soon seized by the Ukrainian military. More videos like this will emerge in the coming weeks as Russian troops literally flee the battlefield in Kharkiv and military vehicles and tanks are reported abandoned in eastern Ukraine. If you have noticed, Ukrainians are no longer afraid of Russians. Just before February 24, the Russian army, which had reached the Ukrainian border, was spreading fear. But the past months have exposed the weaknesses of the Russian army, and now the Ukrainians think they will win against them. The Russians responded in many ways to Ukraine's advances in the northeast of the country. Some municipal officials have called for Putin's dismissal for causing the unprovoked deaths of many young Russians. The conservative newspaper Zavtra, Tomorrow, assured its readers that Russia knew of many setbacks, but always returned. One Zavtra historian recalled that Prince Alexander Nevsky stopped the heavily armed Swedish invaders in 1242 and negotiated a mutual aid relationship with the Mongolian Golden Horde, citing a possible reference to Putin's apparent friendship with Xi Jinping. Some Russian nationalist bloggers urged the Kremlin to enlist men of fighting age and mobilize the nation for all-out war. Popular newspaper Moskovsky Komsomolet published articles reflecting Putin's response to the crisis. Lacking trained combat troops, combative spirit, and advanced weapons, Russian forces can and will use their still abundant brute strength to shatter Ukrainian infrastructure and housing. They would destroy electrical power to disable lighting, paralyze command centers, and stop trains and buses from running. To critics who said civilians should not be targeted, Komsomolet said many facilities were dual-purpose. For example, hospitals can serve military and civilian needs and should therefore be attacked. The resistance of Ukraine and the failures among the Russians showed us the dark side of Russia. This mentality, which sees everything as permissible to win the war, can drag a whole nation into a great hell. The Komsomolets were unhappy with the continuation of their statement, with Zelensky saying that Kiev would not accept any ultimatum and would fight until all its lands were liberated. Zelensky's security advisor denounced Alexei Danilov for saying that Ukraine would fight until Russia was demilitarized and was no longer what is today. Where do Ukrainians get such bold ideas? The Komsomolets asked. Why are they not afraid of Russia? Ukrainians say they have a national government and they think they're part of the West. Also, the Russian media state that they misunderstood Russia's goodwill gestures for Ukraine. This is a funny point because there's a Russian army that has been attacking the civilian infrastructure for months against the Ukrainian armed forces, which has a great advantage on the front. We wonder what kind of goodwill the Russian media is talking about when there are indications that the Russian military has committed many war crimes in the region. Indeed, as Zelensky observed, Russia aimed to deprive people of light and heat by causing power outages in eastern Ukraine. Outages reportedly affected millions of people in the eastern Kharkiv and Donetsk regions. Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Terekov said Russian attacks on civilian infrastructure have left most of the city without electricity and water. The mayor and district governor called for calm and saying emergency services are working to repair the damage and put out the fires. The governor of the neighboring Sumy district said that in just one district, more than 130 settlements were without electricity. Similar problems were reported in the Dnipropetrovsk and Poltava regions. President Zelensky accused Russia of carrying out terrorist acts by targeting civilian infrastructure in a post he shared on social media after the power cuts. Cold, hunger, darkness, and thirst are not as terrible and deadly to us as your friendship and brotherhood, he said. While the Ukrainian heroes gained the sympathy and help of the whole world with their determination, willpower, and resistance against the Russians are being dragged towards the dark pages of the history. We hope that Ukrainians will soon regain the freedom and territorial integrity they deserve. Thanks for watching.